Okay, so I'm going to talk about the duties of the lieutenant governor and some of the issues that the lieutenant governor is faced with. Talk a little bit about the campaign. So Matt Bevins jumped in. Matt Bevin was the one who said he was not going to run to the left of Mitch or to the right, but right over Mitch McConnell. And he put up a good fight. Even got the endorsement of Glenn Beck. And now he has a Tea Party, a black woman who is a Tea Partier is his running mate. So before he seemed like he distanced himself from the Tea Party. It seemed like he didn't embrace the Tea Party publicly. He didn't say, yes, I am a Tea Party candidate. Whereas James Comer just seems like he is grassroots and is Tea Party. So him actually getting this Tea Party candidate, the black woman, which her name is Janine Hampton. So Janine Hampton is going to, fulfill Matt Bevin's sort of Tea Party deficit. So that means there's two major candidates in the Republican race. You have two major candidates. You have Matt Bevin and you got James Comer. Hal Heiner's a rich businessman who's going to pretend to be an outsider, even though he has all this, millions of dollars and hangs out with, country club friends and, eating caviar with wiping his butt with golden toilet paper. So this is Hal Heiner, and then you have the other guy, Will T. Scott. Okay, and so it seems like you got two establishment Karl Rove Republicans, Hal Heiner and Will T. Scott, and two Tea Party candidates. And the Tea Party, whether it was an illusion or not, there has been lots of people that have been able to convert the Tea Party energy into seats of power, to put themselves into positions of power. But so far we haven't seen that much coming out of Occupy. And I'm Occupy. Like, I personally, inside my very being, inside the core of who I am Occupy. And I do see that we need change. A lot of things seem so topsy-turvy to me. It feels like Bizarro World. Where everything's sort of backwards and upside down and doesn't make any sense. I'm going to talk a little bit about that's our lieutenant governor right now. And I really like Crit Llewellyn when she says she was the commissioner, Department of Arts, Secretary of Finance. I believe it was Crit Llewellyn that was doing audits and was telling basically county governments all throughout the state and lots of different agencies that they need to run their departments better. And an audit can't be a bad thing. I don't think you can use an audit to say, well, you can. If there's so much corruption, you're drowning in corruption. But if there's some points of efficiency that you can make, the sort of the process more efficient, and so the just simple little suggestions, doesn't have to be, take it for a grain of salt or change it, if you want a more efficient type of system. So there could be good recommendations, is what I'm trying to say. So an audit, a lot of the Tea Partiers want to audit the Federal Reserve. And what would be the problem with auditing the Federal Reserve? We would see, how much money they're making, who the people are. We would see their books and that's the government's bank. That's a central bank for America. And we're not even allowed to see the books for the central bank. Are they running the books right? Are they cooking the books? If there is no accountability, one can only assume absolute power corrupts absolutely, and that they are cooking the books. Of course, there should be an audit of the Federal Reserve. So Crit Llewellyn is the current lieutenant governor right now. I like her. I think she's a good person. Now, with the position of lieutenant governor, it's actually a sinecure. And learn that word, because that word is going to be synonymous with lieutenant governor. It's a sinecure. It's a position that doesn't have many responsibilities, and you don't really have to do much. And people, they run for different reasons. It's an influential person. You run as a run mate. You can help somebody, achieve a candidacy. But for the most part, you're, most likely, unless there's some unforeseen tragic circumstances, you will not be put up to the position of governor. And since you're not going to be governor, what do you do for the rest of the 4 years that you're in office? And here are the duties prescribed by law. Right, this is LRC. This is 11.400. And this is the duties of the lieutenant governor. And actually, Gatewood Galbraith had talked about the changes in the lieutenant governor in 1992, because the lieutenant governor and the governor used to run separate races. And then they would also, when the governor went out of the state, the lieutenant governor would act as the governor in the state. But the 1992 change in laws completely, did away with that. And so now the lieutenant governor is basically just, you just sit on a bunch of board of meetings, which I'm going to go through. Each one of these commissions are important commissions, but to just be a member of a committee, that's a good thing. It means you have influence, but how do you measure influence? You have to have an agenda. You got to speak about good ideas, and you got to get your ideas passed. And so the chair has the agenda setting position and can run the meeting as they see fit. But that as a member, you do have some influence. You don't have as much influence as the chair, but you do have influence as a member. And as a member in any democratic body throughout the state, in any type of government committee, it should be, the Roberts Rules of Order should apply. The minority get their say, the majority get their way. So everybody should have a say-so. And you wouldn't want to deprive the speaker of presenting an idea, but also the listeners who might hear a good idea. And it doesn't matter whose mouth it comes out of. A good idea is just a good idea. Okay, so the duties of a lieutenant governor, let's see, I'm going to come back to this, but you could see you serve as vice chairman of the State Property and Buildings Commission, the vice chairman, so you're, still second in command in that board, but you could have a say-so in what the State Property and Buildings Commission passes or, wants to move on and to have action with. To serve as vice chairman of the Kentucky Turnpike Authority, to serve as a member of the Kentucky Council on Agriculture. So the Turnpike and Agricultural, State Property and Buildings Commission, Public Officials Compensation. So you got lots of different, committees to serve in. Now, I want to compare the lieutenant governor position with that of Texas. Texas, in fact, there's some people that says that the lieutenant governor is more powerful than the governor. The lieutenant governor is not many a cynic here. In every state. In Texas, the office of lieutenant governor is quite influential. The Lone Star State lieutenant governor serves as president of the state senate. The lieutenant governor is also vested with the formidable power to appoint members of the senate committees and sends proposed legislation to the respective committees. In addition, the lieutenant governor casts the tie-breaking vote. So the lieutenant governor has appointment powers. They have they run the president of the state senate, so they're the chair of the senate, right, of one of the big bodies. So that's a huge thing. To be the chair of the meeting means you could set the agenda. And then appointing, the appointment powers is power. In fact, that's one of the main powers you have. You got military power. As governor, you have influential, informal, and formal power. But the formal power that you have as governor is you got appointment power. You can give people jobs. You can design your cabinet how you want to design it. And then you, and the budget. And you also, you pass new laws, right, too. But the biggest ones, I think, the biggest power that a governor has is the appointment powers to give jobs to, the best, the best people out here, right, to give jobs to the most qualified people. No nepotism. You can't just give jobs to your friends. We all learned that with Ernie Fletcher. But we do... need, anyways, it's an appointment power, so that's a power that the government has. And then also the power of the purse, the budget. The governor actually had lots of control over the budget, but since, I think, Ernie Fletcher, they wrestled the budget away from him, the legislature did. And so now the legislature proposes the budget. The legislature decides on what the budget wants to be, and then the governor signs it into law. But Steve Beshear signed a budget into law, but he used line item veto. And nobody called him on this. And so I guess he's allowed to have line item veto. He's allowed to go through the entire budget and, I see that they, wanted this much money for whatever, and I'm going to just cross it out because I don't want it. So that gives him, sort of the final say-so over the budget. So the governor still has lots of control over the purse strings, even though the legislature, and that's good. I think it's good that the legislature has it because that requires the House and the Senate to work together to determine where the money goes. And if you want to see a state's priorities, take a look at their budget. And I'm going to take a look at the budget because that's important. It's like, billions of dollars. There's billions of dollars. Go to the Capitol. I mean, it's almost, you have this huge palace, right? You got this huge marble building, this huge structure with all this, spacious land, and then you'll go into, just into poor parts of the cities or out in the countryside, and you just see, just run down living situations. So it's a stark contrast to see poverty on one side of the street and then uber wealth on the other side. So in Texas, right, the lieutenant governor actually has, some people argue that it has more power than the governor, but in Kentucky it's not even close to that. It's a sinecure, and a sinecure, I looked at the definition of it. It's a noun, and it's a position requiring little or no work, but giving the holder status or financial benefit. It is like $100,000 job. You get $100,000. That's power, right? You get some personal wealth. You get some personal money. You do have a position of authority, and with a position of authority, while you might not have many formal powers, you are the lieutenant governor, right? You're the lieutenant governor, and you would assume that the governor and lieutenant governor are probably talking to each other a lot. They are on the same page with the issues. They have, an informal relationship, and they do. The governor and lieutenant governor can form new jobs and responsibilities for the lieutenant governor. So if Jeff Young was to tell me, hey, I want you to, go international and just go talk to a bunch of countries and see if we can get them to come to Kentucky and establish a headquarters here, and see if we could sell Kentucky to get more of the, to be like Singapore or Suriname, not Singapore, well, maybe Singapore, but Suriname and Qatar and Liechtenstein and Switzerland, right? You get the wealth, you get the corporations, you get the headquarters here. You want people here. It's centrally located, all these rivers, all these streams, all this land, all the people. It's in America. Look at all the markets that you got. You got 7 states, adjacent to us. Only Tennessee has more states that's connected to it. It's centrally located right in the heart of America, right in the center. And then you have, all these adjacent states. So you got an Illinois market, Indiana market, Ohio market, Missouri market, West Virginia, Virginia market. You got all these markets right there. And then they, spread out to the rest of the whole country. And being the wealthiest nation in the world, that's incredible. We got several wealthy states. And actually the economy of Indiana and Illinois and Tennessee, we can learn from all these. Really, they're very comparable economies. When I studied comparable government, I wish actually we just compared the states in the United States. That seemed like that would be more, conducive to compare and contrast something that's more closely aligned and more similar to one another, instead of just saying, here's what they do. And it's like, wow, that's crazy. How do they function? But anyways, it's a sinecure. The lieutenant governor position of Kentucky is a sinecure. It is not. There is very little work, very little responsibilities, very little duties. But you are one heartbeat away. So if something tragically did happen, William Justice Goebel, the only governor in America who's ever been assassinated, was right here in Kentucky, and it was in 1900. He was assassinated on his inauguration day, and he was murdered. So he dies 3 days later. He's only governor. He only passed like a couple laws, like 2 laws or something. But regardless, what happened afterwards is who becomes the governor now. They had declared William Justice Goebel the winner. The other guy said he was the winner. Now the other guy is dead. What they did was they gave the position to William Justice Goebel's lieutenant governor. And so he got the gauntlet, and then he got to, sort of try to establish. They used Goebel as a martyr, and Goebel had a lot of influence in the beginning history of Kentucky, especially since he was the first progressive, the first New Deal progressive. And, he wanted, he was against the textbook monopolies. He was against toll roads. He fought for the labor unions, basically almost would just, if there was a union dispute, the working class people would win. He would always defend the working class peoples. He didn't like the tolls because they were just farmers trying to drive down the road, had to pay all this money just to get past. We need freedom of movement. That's good for commerce. Having tolls, everybody has to slow down, throw some money in, pay for the bridge. We got, the road department is one of the most notoriously corrupt organizations in Kentucky, and so we probably could just cut the waste out of the road department and build these bridges. I-75 fell down. Could you imagine driving over a bridge and it just falls down? They are functionally obsolete. They have been designated by the federal government. The bridges in Cincinnati and in Louisville are functionally obsolete. You could drive over it and it could just fall down. And just, what do? There was one person that died in an I-75 crash. So the lieutenant governor of Kentucky formerly served as the president of the Senate. So before, there was, the lieutenant governor of Kentucky had power, but afterwards they didn't. However, in 1992, amendment to Kentucky Constitution, and the way they get amendment, the legislature says, we're going to decide on this referendum, then it goes to the people, and then the people say yes or no. And so the people in 1992 said yes. Yes, we don't want the lieutenant governor to have any power. And for whatever reason, we have a strong governor state, and Julian Carroll is a good example of the strong governor state, and I think it does actually work more efficient with a strong governor with one face, and that one face is going to be Jeff Young. And so my real responsibility is on the campaign for right now is to get him elected, to make him look good, and that's it. And that's that's the immediate goals for right now. But in general, he's the man. He's going to be the man. And I'm going to be, the guy on the chair that sits off to the side of the man. That would be my role. So it's a sinecure. The lieutenant governor isn't that big of a position. It's a sinecure, right? So here are the duties of the lieutenant governor. Before I get to the duties of the lieutenant governor, I want to read some Gatewood Galbraith, because he's got a lot of good ideas, and the great pool of ideas, the best ideas should prevail. He's got some really good ideas about what we need to do with Highway 80, and he wants a dam on the Kentucky River. And I'm just going to read this. It's page 199. The last free man in America meets the synthetic subversion. That's his autobiography, Gatewood Galbraith. And so I was looking for Kentucky 80, and then I was also looking for the Kentucky River. It goes through Frankfort. And so he wanted to put a dam on the Kentucky River, and then by having a dam on the Kentucky River, it blocks all that water up, and it creates a lake. And he thinks that by putting a dam, let's see, Fayette, Clark, Anderson, Franklin. Is it Franklin County? Is that where Frankfurt's at? I feel like it is. I'm not for sure. But I'd need to actually find that out. See where Frankfort is. Frankfort's in the middle of the state, but it's in between Lexington and Louisville. And it's the center of the the state. They're the ones that control all the borders. This arbitrary border, that was drawn on a map. They control everything within those lines that the federal government doesn't claim for themselves. So while that's loading, I'm going to take a look at Kentucky 80. Here's Kentucky 80. This is Trails R Us, historic Highway 68. So you see where 68 starts from western Kentucky, the westernmost point, and actually I think 68's right there. But it combines into this road here, and it becomes 68 and 80, and then it goes 68 goes up to Maysville. And so actually that's pretty cool. Eventually we did get 68, even though Andrew Jackson tried to stop this road from being constructed. The road from Maysville. I like a combined thing. Let me tell you what Gatewood says. Okay, so I'm just going to read page 199 on the bottom. I would like to attract tourists to the Commonwealth and believe we could do so by designing Highway 80, which is running east to west in southern Kentucky as a tourist corridor, and have visitors driving east to west rather than north to south. They would stay longer, spend more money that way. And the road runs from several world-class waterways in the west, Kentucky Lake and Lake Barkley, to another in the east, Lake Cumberland. So because it's going west to east, I guess when you're going north to south, you're just trying to hurry up to the next state. But I guess west to east, you want to kind of, that's a longer drive. It is longer to go, to cross 80 than it would be to just drive down 75. 80 almost, I don't want to say it's twice as long, but it's longer. It's much longer. And so he wants to take 80, which right there, you can see it on the map, right? It's going right there across. And he wants to take 80 and make it a historic corridor. And I agree with this. I think for commerce, you do need wide open spaces and you need people to be moving around. That's why I disagree with toll roads. We don't need to stop and impede movement for a good economy. You need that hustle and bustle, that exchange of goods and services. And so you need transportation and you need goods and you need to be able to transport your goods out, right? We got the Ohio River and we could just, ship our goods to the world, just taking it down the river and then, sail wherever we want to sail to. But the historic corridor, I want to make a distinction because I think small towns can slow things down, make it speed limit 15, make people drive real slow, and actually don't have a speed limit. Have a naked city, a city that has no street laws, and that makes people look at each other's eyes. They have to pay attention to one another, and they got to have a camaraderie and a respect for one another. People who is either walking or biking or who else is on that road. And I think it's a better system. They got like 50 different cities in Europe that does this, several cities in America that does this. So you can have big corridors so you can get the trucks and you get the supplies and get things moving. But in the small towns, I think you can slow it down and, maybe not even have where you just have like a pavilion, just have a center, right? It's sort of like 4th Street Live. You just have one entertainment district. And that's where, people want to gather. They can walk and stroll and enjoy the park and enjoy the scenery and also go shopping, see some people, interact with others. So it would be a good combination. It would be a good, sort of like your old nostalgic small towns. But because corporate America is sort of just, taken over, you've seen lots of small towns just turn into ghost towns and nobody's there anymore. So the Kentucky 80 runs, east to west, and just like Gatewood says, making a tourist corridor. It's a beautiful state. You can make it a tourist corridor. I think you should have as many tourist corridors as possible. And I think there's even a cut through in Pikeville. There's a cut through, so they're cutting through the mountains, so that way they can get to Virginia. And that's a good idea. I think that's a good project. But 80... making a tourist corridor, so when Virginians or when the people out west are driving through Kentucky, they're going to see a lot of Kentucky on this. And I know some people just want to fly on through and get to wherever they want to go. But we can making a tourist corridor. We can show on each exit, what attractions are there, and to really promote our state and promote especially our national parks and our trails and our. These things are good for the society. I mean, it's good for exercise. It's good for being healthy. It's good for tourist industry. It's good to bring money in. But really the health benefits. I mean, the stats on Kentucky of our health is like one of the worst. Too much smoking, too much drinking, too much obesity, too much fatty foods, and not enough active daily life and healthy eating. So having a tourist industry would show off our wonderful state, and by also protecting the trails and the parks and maintaining them and upkeeping them, I think that just provides a better quality of life, for Kentuckians. So that's one idea that Gatewood have turn Highway 80 into a tourist corridor. Of course you should do that. That just seems obvious. It's a boring idea. Who's going to want to just talk about? I do. I want to talk about this stuff because I think it would be a brilliant idea. In the great pool of ideas, the best ideas should prevail. So here's Frankfurt, and he is saying that he wanted a dam on Kentucky River. And Kentucky River goes from Carrollton, right here, all the way down into the eastern Kentucky mountains. Or wait, it goes this way. It runs up, right? Yeah, I think. I think so. I think it goes that way because the Ohio River goes down. And so I don't see the Ohio River dumping into here. I see this going from the mountains down into the river and then out of the country. They just leave whenever they want to leave, all that water, without a passport, Anyways, this is the Kentucky River, and Frankfurt, it crosses Frankfurt like right here. And so what Gatewood is saying, by putting a dam at Frankfurt where the Kentucky River crosses it, will build a okay, so here's the Kentucky River. He says by putting a dam at Frankfurt, that would make all this a lake up here. And he says by making all this a lake, what we're going to do, so here, let me just read it. Building on the presence of that world-class system of waterways already in place, right? We got more waterways than every state in the nation, except for Alaska. We have more waterways, more streams, more rivers, more creeks, more waterways than every other state. I mean, it's a Garden of Eden still. It's still a Garden of Eden. But a proposed dam on the Kentucky River near Frankfort that would create another lake about 117 miles long, which I would name Commonwealth Dam and Commonwealth Lake. This would be longer than the Cumberland Lake, but slightly more narrow. This lake would reach from Frankfort to the mouth of the Red River at the gorge. So actually, I'm wrong. If there's a dam here, because it's actually going up, right? The river is going up to the Ohio River and going down. So it actually would make a lake out of all this down here. Now, he's saying the Red River Gorge. I don't know what his logistics are. Where's the Red River Gorge? It's I think it's to the west or to the east of Frankfort, right? I don't know. We understand what he's trying to say, okay? Put a dam, make a lake. You got a water source for everybody around, and then you got a big lake, and then you can develop all the surrounding property there because there's water. And many counties in Kentucky don't have water. And it's hard to get water through the hills. You know, some people might even prefer living in the back of nowhere and just pooping in a hole and peeing in a hole and, you know, just transporting their water there. They might not even want water or any type of the modern conveniences. Like the Amish, you know, and you're allowed to live that way. But I think that running water is one of the national treasures. It's an incredible resource. Try to live without running water. It's really difficult. It's really hard. And you have to pretty much change your entire lifestyle. You can't bathe and shower as much. You know, whenever you shower or do anything, when you flush the toilet, whenever you use the bathroom, whenever you know, it has to be an ordeal. You can't just turn on the faucet and there's water. You know, you have to go get a bucket, go, you know, drop it down in the well, bring the bucket up, and make sure it's purified. And then you have to heat it if you want hot water, you know, so there's a lot of things that I guess Americans actually take for granted a little bit. But that's, if it's by choice, that's cool. But if it's not by choice, then that's a tragedy. The people need water. That's one of the basic necessities of life. You need water, you need food, you need clothing, you need housing. And a guaranteed minimum income would guarantee every Kentuckian, all 4.3 million people, would have, you know, that basic necessity. You can't enjoy liberty and freedom and the pursuit of happiness if you don't even have life. Constitution protected life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. So healthcare is a right, a human right, and it is immoral to say that people's health doesn't matter. It's immoral. You're a bad person. Okay, so he's talking about the Commonwealth Lake. He's saying the lake would reach from Frankfort to the mouth of the Red River Gorge without raising that river itself. In other words, it would protect the gorge and also the Palisades. It would solve central and most of eastern Kentucky's water problems for all time and open up lots of eastern Kentucky to development. If we put a moratorium on industrial development and allowed only commercial and residential building within a mile of its shore, we can ensure its cleanliness and give several generations of developers new land on which to operate and take some of the pressure off of Fayette, Jessamine, and other counties whose land is being developed at such breakneck speed. Finally, this lake would intercept much of the Ohio Armada, which descends on Cumberland each year in increasing numbers. No doubt this would be a grand venture, but Kentucky needs to start coming up with some big ideas to address our chronic problems. That's a great idea. So I need to look at the map a little bit better because where's the Red River Gorge? If you're going to dam it, I mean, is he talking about damming like, will this lake be like 3 or 4 counties, larger? He says that it'll be just as big as the Cumberland Lake, but, only more narrow. So I think the Commonwealth Lake, basically the Kentucky Lake, right? Commonwealth Lake. Or maybe just the Gatewood Lake, the Lake of Gatewood. And, now that people are looking at Gatewood and saying how intelligent and smart of a man he was, because, he was in favor of hemp, and now hemp is everywhere. He's in favor of legalizing marijuana, makes everybody look like a bunch of hypocrites. And so, because it is, right, that's backwards society. This is a free society. How is that free? You don't understand economics if you are still in favor of the failed war on drugs. War on drugs has failed. It's an absolute failure. Nixon, Ronald Reagan, these are bad ideas. Bad ideas. You know, the war on drugs only puts more money into the authorities' figures, in the politicians' pockets, and the drug dealers. Drug dealers are making a killing, and so are the politicians who stopping it. In fact, it's so hypocritical that we spend so much money to stop it, but then you also have a huge demand for drugs. So you're spending money with the taxpayers to stop it, and then the taxpayers are spending their own money to keep on doing it. It's a hypocritical policy. We are free individuals. We should have a right to our own body. It's 2015, and we're America. We are Americans. We are free. Individual liberty is one of our, namesake. It's one of our, sort of, a mark of being an American. It's one of our, crowning achievements is that we respect the individual and we respect our freedoms and our Bill of Rights and the Constitution and elections, and we got democracy, and that's why, we're the greatest country in the world. And if we had, a working democracy and we had our rights and freedoms protected, it would be better. So Frankfort is the capital of the Commonwealth of Kentucky. It sits in Franklin County, and a dam would stop it. I guess it would stop it if Frankfort goes north, right? Not Frankfort. The Kentucky River goes north, and so if you had a dam in Franklin, then I guess he's saying that all of this water here would be dammed up, and so all this water would be backed up. And it would give, he's saying it would solve the water problems. In fact, there's water that goes to Letcher County. And so I don't know if it would, give them a water source, but it gives a lot of these eastern Kentucky water sources. And if Letcher County is having issues with water, I can assume that other poor counties in the region also are having troubles with water. So, and then he also said that, you regulate the development. So you have this lake, you get more waterways. And then you only, within a mile off the shores, only residential and commercial businesses. So you maintain the river, you keep it clean, and then dirty industry, you put it a couple miles away. And that will always make sure the water source is clean, make sure that the people have a high standard of life. And since it's built around the river, people would respect water. And, like I said before, that's you can't live without water. It's one of the, absolute staples of human survival. You can live for days without food, but just hours without water. And we're made of 80% water. And H2O in the world, So, yeah, that's the Kentucky River, and that's a little bit about Gatewood. Now I'm going to talk about the duties of the Lieutenant Governor, and then I'm going to call it a night. Or morning. It's 6:20 a.m. Kentucky. So, the duties of the Lieutenant Governor is several things, okay? To serve as a vice chairman of the State Property and Buildings Commission, to serve as vice chairman of the Kentucky Turnpike Authority, to serve as a member of the General Council on Agriculture. Now, I looked up what the General Council on Agriculture is, and here's what it says. The membership of the council shall consist of the Lieutenant Governor, Commissioner of Agriculture, the Secretary of the Cabinet for Economic Development, and 18 citizen members, a majority of whom should be full-time farmers, appointed by the Commissioner of Agriculture. So the Commissioner of Agriculture, do they pay these citizen members? How much do you get paid to be a citizen member? I wonder does everybody get paid that sits on these councils? And who are these 18 individuals? These are the Commissioner of Agriculture is James Comer. So he has had to pick, I think he would be the one who appoints them, 18 citizen members to raise up into the Department of Agriculture. And what are they talking about? I mean, I'm not for sure. I would wish there was more transparency. And there's so many positions. There's so many county positions. There's so many. We do need a leaner, cleaner government. We absolutely do. There's just too much. There's jailers that have no jails. What are y'all doing? You're taking $70,000. You're getting paid, twice as much as the average Kentuckian. And you're taking taxpayer dollars for a jail that's not even there. That's just incredible. And why couldn't you just take an old rundown building and sort of make a jail out of it? Have every one of these counties, if you got $70,000, you got the entire year, everything's paid for. That's not just $10,000 guaranteed minimum income. That's $70,000 guaranteed minimum income. Just because you was able to convince a bunch of folks that you was going to be, hey, I'm going to be the best jailer in the world, but we don't have a jail. Well, it doesn't matter. If we did, I would be the best. I would be the best. Don't even tell me that ain't true. No, you got a point. If we had a jail, you'd be the best. I'm going to vote for you. It makes no sense. It makes absolutely no sense. It's absolute waste. $70,000. So if we get rid of one jailer position and then institute the guaranteed minimum income, you just saved 7 poor people from slipping down the drain. Instead of paying for one, jailer, and he's going to be, he or she is going to be corrupt. No jail. You're a jailer without a jail. You're going to take $70,000 and you're going to think that you earned it and deserved it, and you have the power to arrest people. And so people are going to respect you, right? You can go around beating up anybody that you want to beat up if you're the jailer. But $70,000, that's seven $10,000 checks. And so that would be 7 poor people would have a guaranteed minimum income if we got rid of one jailer position. And that's just one, that's just one example. Just think about, I really do want to tackle the budget. And I do want to get into the positions of government, because I think there's lots of corruption, there's lots of waste, there's lots of bureaucracy, and there's lots of talk about being on the dole. $70,000. Then people complain about the guaranteed minimum income. Oh, $10,000? That's too much. Why should we just pay poor people to sit around doing nothing? Well, because we're a good society, and we don't want people dying on our streets of starvation, of sleeping out in the cold. That is what we're rich. We're better than that. We're good people. And so if we got the funds and we got the money, why? In fact, it makes no sense to do it any other way, because there's all this extra waste and corruption and bureaucracy. It streamlines, it gets rid of poverty, and it streamlines the, straight from the state to the people. Here is a check, and it's good for the economy. I guarantee you every poor person would spend all their $10,000. These jailers probably use $10,000 to survive, and then take $60,000 and put it into Bitcoin, or put it into the ruble, or, some play these currency games and these speculation games, and, the stock market and Wall Street. They don't reinvest in the local small businesses and to make a vibrant economy work. So that's one example, but of sort of corruption that's ridiculous in Kentucky. But all members shall serve at the commissioner's will during his incumbency and until each member's successor is appointed. So let's see, appointed by the Commissioner of Agriculture. So yes, he picks 18 people. You have the Secretary of the Cabinet for Economic Development, who's there, the Commissioner of Agriculture, the Lieutenant Governor. 2 members shall be appointed from each Supreme Court district, and 4 from the state at large. So 18 citizen members, 2 of them from each Supreme Court districts, which are 7 districts. So that's 14 plus 4 from the state at large. So in every district all throughout the state, in the Supreme Court districts, there's House districts, Senate districts, and then federal districts. So many, there's water districts, there's city districts. So many arbitrary lines being drawn on the map. Everybody trying to make their little district bigger. No, this is my area. No, I'm this area. No, this is my. But the Supreme Court district, there's 7 of them, and so that gets people from all throughout the state, and then 4 from the state at large, meaning they could come from everywhere. They all could come from Frankfort. They all could come from Appalachia, from the western coal fields, or the western. I guess there's restaurants and car dealerships and factories and just any place, right? Any place from anywhere. The Commissioner of Agriculture shall serve as chairman of the council. So he dictates the agenda. I would be a member along with, along with another official. So there'd be 3 officials and then 18 citizen members. So there's 21 people in this meeting. And so the Commissioner of Agriculture will set the tone, set the agenda. Here's what I want to talk about, and I might be able to get one item on that agenda. Maybe be able to talk about one. I would like to, set the agenda and get as much of my stuff that I want passed as possible. And so anyways, the council may elect by majority voted vice chairman and such officers of the council as may be deemed necessary. So they could have their own bylaws and their own rules about how that committee is run. Citizen members of the council shall receive a compensation of $50 per day for each day of attendance at meetings of the council, and shall be reimbursed by the Commissioner's Office for necessary and actual expenses in accordance with the provisions of KRS Chapters 44 $1.45. So $50 a day isn't much, but it's gas money to get back and forth. And if you take away from your normal, money making things, it offsets the thing. So the citizen members are not making money at this. They are not. $50 is something, and that's it helps. But if you're driving for 2 hours away, that's all in gas. For every day you're spending $50 in gas to go there and back. You probably should just stay in town for a while, right? The legislature meets for about a month, right? For every other year, and 2 months every other year. So they're only going to meet for a month this year. So you could do something like that. You just meet in this week. We're going to meet, but we also got the electronic communication. So really, if everybody got on broadband internet, which we should have one big broadband pole, and all of Kentucky gets internet. In Minneapolis, they have one big wireless internet for the whole city, and it costs $10 for high-speed broadband internet in Minneapolis. $10 per person, cheap. I'm paying $70 for for satellite internet, and that's $70, and I'm poor Kentuckian. I'm in the rural area, and that's why I gotta use satellite. But that's $70. I mean, that's $70 a month compared to $10. That's, again, we're seeing we being poor. You pay 7 times the amount of corruption. You pay 7 times the amount for basic services. So we can do better than this. I think with government owning, like in Corinth, they own the fiber optic high-speed internet in Corinth, and so I think that's a good idea because that is another player on the scene. And I would think government could do it more efficient. Everybody says the government's the problem. I think that the government could very well be the solution, and that's why the corporations want you to think that the government is the problem. Because who is going to restrict just, unbridled casino-style, laissez-faire, dog-eat-dog capitalism? Who is going to bridle that? If a bunch of rich people are just trying to make as much money as they can, who is going to make sure that there's, that poverty is taken care of? Who is going to make sure that we have good, clean roads and potholes, and who's are covered? Who's going to make sure that the schools have enough financing and that there's enough, that people are okay? Who's going to make sure that there's, pollution is being worked on, and make sure that, women aren't getting battered and beat up? And who's going to institute justice? And, so the government can be the problem many times because they get in bed with corporations and become a fascist, totalitarian Mussolini, Leviathan. And so it becomes this big bloated police state where everybody's on the dole, everybody's corrupt, and they're not doing anything for the people. They're taking all the money for themselves. So the fear that the corporatists have with government is that you can make government democratic, and you can make government fair, and you can make government fight for working class people. And if we had a government of and by, for working class families, we would have such a better system. We would have such a better society. In fact, even Warren Buffett is kind of like, oh my God, the rich people have all this money, all this freedom. They're making every bit of profit. They're taking it all for themselves. They have these big yachts. They're buying, personal little islands, going on cruises every other day, eating just caviar nonstop, wiping their butt with golden toilet paper. And so they just have these, expensive, posh lives. And so if they only care about themselves and making as much money as they can for themselves and me, and who cares about you, they will screw you over. They will not care about what they pollute. They will not care about the poor. They will not care about the homeless. They're taken care of. I got mine. Who cares about you? That's why you need politics. That's why you need a political solution to, this inverted totalitarian system is what Chris Hedges calls it. I think it's just really straight up totalitarianism. It doesn't have to be like that. It's not written up to be like that. But when, if the people work together and want to protest, who do you see get arrested? Do you see more homeless and poor people get arrested, or do you see the big bankers and the real wealthy establishment? Most of the time it's the poor people, especially if you don't have a lawyer. If you have no lawyer and you're poor, you're basically just an open target for any, fascist Nazi out here who just wants to mess, push you around for no reason. There are people that are in the position that want to be good and want to do good, and but I think the culture of it can turn even some of the best people into, into not so good people. But it's a dangerous job, and we need safety. We need people who are, we need fair and civil-minded, law enforcers. It's just that the rule of law means everybody's supposed to be underneath the law. So if you go out and get drunk and get a DUI, then you should be held accountable just like anybody else is held accountable for it. A poor person will get screwed over with the DUI, but you have Brandon Smith, a state senator out of Frankfurt, who got pulled over for a DUI, and it's in the Constitution that he actually gets away with it. Section 43 says if you're in session, doing some legislative work, you can break all the laws you want to break as long as it's not a felony and as long as it's not violent. And so a DUI charge isn't violent and it's not a felony. So he is right. The law lets him get out of it. But that is under the rule of law because it's in the Constitution. But we can change that. And how do we change it? We can change that law, or we can rewrite the Constitution. And it would be easy to do. It would be easy to have a constitutional convention. Constitutional convention takes 2 years of just to vote on it and to get the convention together and then to vote on it, then propose it to the people, and then the people vote on it. And then, after that November, so after 2 years of negotiation and talking to, if it went through as fast as possible, by the 1st, January 1st, after that election, after the people passed the Constitutional Convention, January 1st, you would have a new government. So in the meantime, you would be living by the rules that are on the books now. And then from, maybe from November to January 1st, there's going to be a transition period. And so you're going to need a transition team. And you're going to need to get from, having all these laws and complications and revisions and amendments and the gutted out Constitution. There's no consistency to the thing. All this corrupt positions, all these, silly laws. You can make it a stronger Constitution, guarantee all of our rights and freedoms that's protected under Kentucky Constitution, American Constitution, the United Nations, Declaration of Human Rights. We get all the freedoms and all the rights that we can. We, chisel out that Bill of Rights, and then we draw up a government that is more equitable, more fair, especially in today's day and age. And so we can cut out the waste. We can make one document that we're all playing by. We can level the playing field by having one set of rules. How's it? We have these private pocket tyrannies all throughout the state. If we had one set of rules, then we would be able to, everybody knows the rules. Everybody knows what is expected and what you're supposed to do. But if we don't, since we have we got too many rules, people aren't reading the Constitution. They're not reading the new laws. They don't care what Frankfurt's doing. It's essentially, they just care about the few laws that they just passed, and then they forget about, the lifelong legacies, the historical legacies of, say, the right to free speech or the right to religion or to bear arms or to have revolution. Section 4 of Kentucky's Constitution guarantees the right to the people to overthrow the government. Kentucky people have a right to a revolution, and that's incredible. We must keep that right, Section 4. And then, once we design the Bill of Rights, and we need to design a government. And, there's KRS. I like a lot of the things that the system has. The KRS, everything's online. If you really scour through all the laws, you'll see how it's been gutted and changed so many different times. An amendment actually changed the entire judicial branch. So one of our branches, there's only 3 branches of government, at least in America. I've seen other ones that actually add the media branch and add an election branch. But there's only 3 branches, and one of those branches of government was overhauled. So the original Constitution has nothing to do with how the judicial system is being run. They designed their own set of rules, and they've been playing by those set of rules ever since, 68 or 72 or something. I don't know. The amendment was several decades ago. And so the entire judicial branch has been, revamped and reorganized. And so instead of having all these wild different laws, I like the Kentucky or the KRS website because you have every Kentucky law is in, that it is accessible to the public. But there's just too many laws. There's just so many laws. And then if we don't have a consistent one document that all these laws are actually stemming from, people are just making it up as they go along. So we need to have one document that everybody can understand. Here are the rules. And usually that Constitution, you're supposed to make it slim and then the state can fill in the specifics of the thing. So you can have the website, you can print up the Constitution, and you can have all the specific rules that would need to fall under any of these sections. But you need a slim Constitution, so that way every citizen will pick it up, know what their rights are, what they're allowed to do, what they're not allowed to do, and then by all of us playing by the same rules, you'll see a better and greater respect for one another. People will understand the system. They won't get freaked out when one thing has happened. They'll have, hopefully, we'll get a fair judicial system, and then people will actually have faith in their government and the executive and legislature, and that these politicians and all these people getting $70,000 positions to do nothing, actually gives a crap about the people. And so, we can make a constitution that is actually amenable to the people. And that's what it's all about. The people. The people. The people, the people. Working class peoples. Regular people. The average Kentuckian. So, that I would be sitting on the Agricultural Commission, right? A majority of the members appointed to the council shall constitute a quorum. So, 18 people are there. If the majority are there, 10 people, then they can make whatever decisions they want to make. They get $50 a day, and there's 3 people: Lieutenant Governor, Commissioner of Agriculture, Secretary for Cabinet of Economic Development. So I would see, if I'm Lieutenant Governor and James Comer is still the Commissioner, then I will sit at James Comer's meeting while he is, as the chair, setting the agenda and talking about the things that he wants to talk. So I have a seat at the table, and that's important. It's not the biggest seat, but it is a seat. And since I'll be working with the governor, then any of these positions and anything that happens, any good ideas, I can take to the governor and try to get it passed. Jeff Young is going to have his own ideas about how things are going to work, and so we would have to convince him of the the new laws or the new ideas for it to actually get passed. So that's just one example of one council. And all these councils, have their own rules and regulations. So I would need to, read all the KRS out there to know exactly my duties and specific things. But essentially, I'm sitting at a meeting. I could sit at a meeting, and talk about the issues that I agree with. I could do that. That's not a problem. That's easy to do. The harder jobs would be to craft legislation, to write the Constitutional Convention, and even making a budget. What, this person gets $10,000? No. Make it 9,000, or no, make it 11,000. These are easy decisions to make, So, member of Kentucky Council on Agriculture, Public Officials Compensation Commission. That would be interesting. I would want to know about the jailers. Why are we paying all these positions? I would like actually the LRC to do a research into all the money and all the positions that get paid out. Are there positions that are unneeded and unnecessary? And can we do something better about this? We got a PVA, we got a surveyor, now I think all these people are important, but how much money do they make, and how important, I guess I shouldn't just be talking just out loud like this, but I feel like when you look at all the positions that are elected per county, there's just so many of them. And I would say the average Kentuckian do not know the county officials, all the duties, all the jobs that they have, and their duties, and what is expected out of them, and how much money they make. I don't think the general Kentucky person knows about this. We're not taught civics in public education. We're not taught, the Kentucky Constitution. So what laws are people going by? Basically, either you have a moral core, you just know what is right and wrong, and you go around being a good person, and that comes back to you, or you're doing whatever you can do, as long as nobody says anything. You're doing whatever you can get away with. And that's why I would say you see a lot of crazy behavior. People forcing other people to eat their own beards. People, 5-year-olds shooting 2-year-olds. Just crazy, taking off, running down to Florida, and breaking into cars, and just running, get the hell out of Dodge. So that would be a good commission to be on, the Public Officials Compensation Commission. The Council on Agriculture, that's a good thing. That's where hemp got legalized, so we just need to take the next inevitable step. Kentucky Turnpike Authority, I guess that's, I don't know if there is a turnpike, but that just sounds like a road department thing, so, make sure that we're taking care of our roads. Maybe do Gatewood's idea with Kentucky Highway 80, right? Can turn that, talk to the Turnpike Authority. I don't know if all these people... they have budgets. I would think all these committees has a budget, and they can spend so much money, and then each one of these groups of people decide and try to figure out where they can spend and make that money at. So to serve as a member of the board of Kentucky Housing Corporation, Kentucky Housing, so we can have good housing. To serve as a member of Kentucky delegations on the following interstate compact commissions or boards. So these are interstates. These will be with other states. The Tennessee Tom Bigby Waterway Development Authority, the Interstate Water Sanitation Control Commissions, the Southern Growth Policies Board, Breaks Interstate Parks Commission, Falls of the Ohio Interstate Park Commission, Kentucky Mining Advisory Council for the Interstate Mining Compact, as provided by all of them. They have all those have specific KRS, dictated bylaws and how the meeting would run. So I'll just have to take a few hours and just read what all those specific things are, know how the meeting is going to be run, and then when I get to the meeting, speak up, be heard, and try to get the working class families' voices heard. I almost wanted to, I don't know, I'm an independent thinker, and so the two-party duopoly has been frustrating for me. And so as an independent, I feel like if I was to say, precisely what I am, I was thinking about this, the Farmer and Labor Party. I think that's perfect because, I speak for the underdog, I speak for the oppressed, and whereas you haven't seen labor unions and farmers get together as much as they should be getting together, the farmers understand that these big factory farms, the big corporations, that they are competing against their small business and their small operation, their small farms, right? And so they see themselves as the oppressed, but they also have land. And so labor unions would represent some people that have land and some people that are just renting. But I see, the oppressors and the oppressed, and farmers, working class peoples were the oppressed. And there's capital, and you need, industry to make money and to produce a GDP, to provide jobs. But you can also get people to start their own small businesses, encourage that entrepreneurial spirit, to not, stop it, not to try to tax people out of existence. Oh, you're starting a business? Well, give me, pay me $100 for this license. Well, I only have, $50 to get back home. Well, I don't care. Get out of town. No, let's get business. Let's get, the idea of hustle and bustle and selling stuff. This is America, This is America. And no, flea markets can look, kind of down run, and it's not as pretty as a big box department store. But those big box department stores are making other states, like Walmart, is making Arkansas rich. Walmart is making Arkansas rich. Kentucky Utilities is making Pennsylvania rich. So their headquarters are in another state. All the profits go up the line, up the chain. So when you spend money at a Walmart, say at a farmer's stand, a farmer who picked the tomatoes out of his field and put it on the table to be sold to the general public. I've seen people try to legislate this out and say that you can't do that. You can't have yard sales. You can't sell your products on your front lawn and all this other because it's dirty. It don't look pretty. Well, you have a right to do that. And I think actually we should, my God, we're a capitalist society and we're telling people not to sell stuff. What kind of free market society is this? It seems like the corporations and the government get the power. They say, here's what business looks like, and your business doesn't look, it's just a table on the side of a road. Get on out of here. No, I picked these tomatoes this morning. They're fresh tomatoes. They're good tomatoes. You keep the money in your county. You keep the money in your city, and you help enrich each other instead of sending all the profits to Arkansas and all the profits, to Maryland if you're, 4th Street Live, or to Pennsylvania if you're Kentucky Utilities. And so we can enrich ourselves. I think that the economics, it's all about the money. It's all about the economics. We can do capitalism and we can do socialism better. We can make sure working class people has enough wages and money in their pockets, and making sure that corporations and industries can, establish themselves, and they can, make some profits too. You would think that the more money that the corporations make, the more money that would trickle down to the working class people. Unfortunately, since that isn't happening, that's when you have to have the political solution and make the bosses pay a fair wage. You are enriching yourself to a kilt. You're out of your mind, just rich. If you have a big party, this is Huey Long. But if you have a big party and there's a big buffet, and one man came in and just said, I'm going to take all this food And he ate all the food that he could, ate all day, fat, gluttonous, had no room in his stomach, didn't care, and then took all the rest of the food away, and took 9/10 of the buffet away, and then just left 1/10 for anybody else that wanted it, that cooked it and made it and cleaned it and, made sure he had drinks and was refilled and, good wait staff. They only get 1/10 of the food. That's not fair. That's not fair. And that's not right. So we could strike a balance between capital and between labor. Making money and respecting human rights are not contradicting. In fact, FDR says that if you pay somebody under a living wage, that job should be illegal. That job should not be allowed. You are enslaving a person who can't even pay their own bills in this society. That's not allowed. You can't do that. So you got to pay a livable, decent wage for, work. Like I can do, if you were to tell me, okay, so let's say I'm a laborer. Let's just say I pick tomatoes or pick beans, or I'm just a farm laborer, a farmhand. I could do the work, but I can't do the oppression and the abuse. So go out, pick those tomatoes, take tomatoes off the vine, put it in a basket, come by, wash them, assemble them, done. What else is there to do? You don't need to be standing over there with a whip and treating them like slaves and yelling at them, abusing them and treating them like crap. They can maintain their dignity. They can pick the tomatoes, do the work, do the labor, right? Without labor, that wouldn't get done. And then they get their paycheck, and that's tit for tat, right? Yeah, it's wage slavery, but you get paid. And if you get paid, that compensates for you renting your body out for a few hours. And so that's that I can do. I cannot do this, the hovering over me, the disrespect, the crappiness of the thing. And in fact, with when I'm out in the field, like if I was picking tomatoes, I would say, well, what if we raise the tomatoes like this? Or what if we could pick them like this? And I would be thinking of innovative ways to make, the process more efficient. That's a good conversation. That's a good relationship. Talking about how to make the corporation better. You would think the owners and the masters, of society would want to have that conversation. But since they only care about their power and you're a nobody's slave, shut your mouth. You're a dumbass. Fuck you. Go pick those tomatoes like the bitch you are. And that's, we got to have better dignity. We got to have better pride in ourselves. And I think all working people should have that dignity and pride in themselves. But I don't see it. I see too many workers who's willing to sell out, become Uncle Toms, have absolutely no dignity, no moral core, no self. Their self is gone. They're absolutely just care about what their masses or daddy bosses want them to do. So, if I'm picking those tomatoes, I can do it and still retain my dignity. Don't abuse me. Don't yell at me. Don't say, pick that tomato there. Pick that tomato. Now pick up that basket. Now do that. I know the job. The job, pick the tomatoes, wash them, and assemble them. Easy. You don't need to tell me any more things. Now you can just talk to me as a person. You've already told me the job. You've told me the expectations. Now just say, hey, how about those Yankees? Hey, did you see the UK U of L game? Hey, how's the kids? How are you doing? You have good ideas about how this can be efficient? Let me hear them. Maybe I'll agree with them and maybe I'll go on. Maybe I won't agree with them. But I like how you're thinking. If you're thinking that you're the corporation, that you want to make my industry more efficient, I'm all ears. I want to hear everything that you got to say. And if you don't allow people to do that, then you should think about unionizing and striking. Solidarity. Stand up to the oppression. Stop the oppression. Okay? So, let's see. I think I've covered everything. Kentucky Mining Advisory Council, the Interstate Water Sanitation, Tennessee Tom Bigby Waterway Development, Falls of the Ohio Interstate Park Commission, the Breaks Interstate Park Commission, the Southern Growth Policies, and then all these other, the Kentucky Housing Corporation, Public Officials Compensation Commission, the Kentucky Council on Agriculture, Kentucky Turnpike Authority, State Property and Bridges Commission. These are all jobs that can be easily done. Sit at these meetings, and if you got ideas about how you can make it better, and if we had a constitutional convention, we might, every position, every one of these committees would be up for, do we need all these committees? We got 10 different committees. And I've never heard a single one of these committees. Being a citizen of Kentucky, I'm sure they've done things for me, but I don't know that. You know what I mean? Like, I assume that State Property and Buildings Commission has made sure that people are following the fire, safety hazards, and there's, the things are safe, right? the State Property and Building Commission, they're not putting overloading electrical outlets. Electrical fires aren't being lit. People are making sure that there's building codes, right? There's property and building codes. But we also got, the soil and water conservation district supervisors. So they're for the soil and the water, and they're to conserve it. And then we have the state property and the buildings. I don't know. And then zoning and commission. It just seems like there's so many overlapping powers. What powers do they have? They could recommend this thing and then maybe get a law passed. Many times laws don't get passed. And so what are these commissions, all these conversations, all these people, what are they talking about? Are they just sitting at these meetings and taking money and making no decisions? Or are they just making incremental decisions? Are they making sure they're wealthy and nobody else is? I mean, I bet James Comer Agricultural Commission is probably, I don't know. I think that they're all pretty active, but I would say that James Comer Agriculture Commission is probably one of the most vibrant and exciting committees that you got right now in Frankfurt, because they're legalizing hemp and they're doing this new industry thing, and they have an application process, and they've determined who can raise it, who can't raise it. You've been raising hemp in Kentucky for the last 2 years. I don't know if they are making any money off of it. I don't know if they're getting where's this research? We were supposed to do this for research purposes. Are each one of these farmers writing up a research report, and you can publish that research report, to the entire state? Are we doing these things? If it's for research, what is working with hemp and what isn't working with hemp? Can we make it profitable? And if we can't make it profitable, turning it into hempcrete or car parts or, whatever, if we can't make hemp profitable, then legalize it, right? We can make money off of medicinal marijuana. We can make money off of whole plant marijuana. Could you imagine this Garden of Eden that we already have being planted with the most evolved plant ever? You would have gardens of Edens in every front and backyard in the entire state. And, the industry, the ideas, just the ideas that people would be thinking, once we have, marijuana gardens everywhere, the ideas people would be thinking of new things. In fact, I heard that for one scientific breakthrough, you need 10,000 scientists. Are the corporations going to pay for those scientists to make an economic breakthrough? Maybe if they can profit off the economic breakthrough. But Tesla, he could provide electricity free, using the radio waves or using whatever, some energy in the atmosphere, and just light the entire field of light bulbs for free. But the electric companies can't make money off of that. So the electric companies will never invest scientific progress. They will never pay 10,000 scientists to figure out a way to make free electricity and to put themselves out of business. You want to solve the energy crisis? Take a look at Tesla's, energy. How did he light a whole field of light bulbs just using the energy in the air? How did he do that? And how come we haven't, employed this? There's solar power, there's wind power, there's so many alternative energy sources out here. And we could do better. We could do better. And so I think this is a good, intelligent conversation that we're going to have. And so James Comer should produce that report about the hemp progress and the research that's going on. And I think he should pull his head out of his ass and just say, hey, I'm for legalization. I'm running for governor and I'm for legalization. Are you a true Tea Party candidate? You and Matt Bevin got these Tea Party supporters. Looks like you might be, in favor of a liberal marijuana policy. We need a liberal marijuana policy. You want to talk about Gatewood being liberal, conservative? He was for a liberal marijuana policy. Conservative is to keep the war on drugs, to keep, financing this failed endeavor. Instead, let's work on the demand side, educate people, give people plenty of opportunities. Don't waste your life. Don't do meth. Don't do crocodile. It's going to eat your teeth, eat your face, eat your arms, eat your body up. Quit being miserable. Quit being depressed. Have people care. Love one another. Costa Rica is one of the happiest countries in the world. And Costa Rica isn't one of the richest countries. So you can do happiness without being filthy rich. But I think we can do both. I think we can have a badass, a kick-ass socialist capitalist system, a mixed socialist capitalist system. So those are the duties of the lieutenant governor. That was a little bit about it. I read a little bit about Gatewood and his, his ideas for Kentucky 80, for the Commonwealth Dam to get all that water into the eastern Kentucky mountains, the Red River Gorge, all that raises the water up, more people on the lakes and boating and canoeing and hiking and walking on the trails and camping and being energetic and athletic and more tourists. All the mile around the lake, residential, commercial properties, nice, small, idyllic, little shops, little candy shops, little this shop, little mom and pop, small business everywhere. And even maybe, I don't know if a internet cafe would be a good idea or not, but I don't know. I think we can provide internet very cheaply for the entire state with just one big giant pole. And if it not, maybe we can't have a big giant pole, might mess with the air, something or another. Have like 50, internet poles and just do it like Minneapolis. And just get the entire state, on broadband. So yeah, those are the duties of the lieutenant governor. I'm familiar with the duties. I can do these duties. This is not hard. Just go to a meeting, advocate for my positions, read the KRS so that way I know how the meetings are going to be run, know the bylaws, and then, work on relationships and make things better, right? Make things better. I can do that. That is something very easy to do.